Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k unit review video. Today guys, we're going to be taking a look at the Macharius heavy tank. So for those of you who may not have seen one of these unit reviews before, how we do it is we take a look at the unit stats, its war gear options, any data sheet abilities and related stratagems, and then we have a little look at its best use on the battlefield and overall if it is a good, bad, okay, or quite frankly dreadful unit. So now you know what to expect, let's dive straight into this. So let's start off by taking a look at the characteristics of the Macharius, and I have to say its stat line certainly reflects that it is a big, beefy frontline tank. So it costs 310 points base, has a movement of 10 inches, weapon skill 6+, ballistic skill 4+, strength 7, toughness 8, 22 wounds, 6 attacks in close combat, leadership 8, and a 2+ save thanks to the latest balanced data slate. For its standard loadout, the Macharius comes with 2 heavy stubbers, a Macharius twin battle cannon, another twin heavy stubber, and adamantium tracks. In terms of options for its war gear, the 2 heavy stubbers can be replaced with 2 heavy bolters or 2 heavy flamers. It can also take a hunter killer missile, and it can take an additional storm bolter or heavy stubber on a pintle mount. So taking a look at the profile of the weapons this thing can take, it has got essentially 4 heavy stubbers. Each one of those heavy stubbers fires 3 shots at 36-inch range, strength 4, AP dash damage 1. That means this thing will be putting out 12 heavy stubber shots, and if you give it that extra heavy stubber, it will actually be putting out 15 heavy stubber shots, which isn't too bad. Yeah, they might not have great strength or AP or anything like that, but that volume of fire will certainly help pick up a few Hammer of the Emperor auto wounds. But of course, the main event is that Macharius twin battle cannon with a 72-inch range, heavy 2d6, strength 8, AP -2, and d6 damage. Now, on the surface, you might be thinking to yourself, that sounds awfully close to a standard battle cannon. You know, I can get 2d6 shots on a Leman Russ if I only move half distance thanks to grinding advance. I've got strength 8, I've got AP -2. Why would I spend 310 points on a Macharius twin battle cannon when I can get myself a bog standard Leman Russ one for about half the point? Well, the first reason why the Macharius twin battle cannon is superior is, quite frankly, it always fires 2d6 shots. That Leman Russ has to move around the battlefield incredibly slowly if it wants to be able to get 2d6 shots. The Macharius cares not for your movement shenanigans. It will move 10 inches all the time. It will get 2d6 battle cannon shots all the time, and that means that its firepower output is always on maximum. But the main reason why the Macharius twin battle cannon is superior to your standard battle cannon is that damage output. Your standard battle cannon will do D3 damage. That's an average of 2, and that's all right. But the Macharius battle cannon does D6 damage. That is the same as a Demolisher cannon, and we all know how good Demolisher cannons are. That means the average damage done by a Macharius twin battle cannon is 3.5. Rounding up, that is 4 damage, so it has double the damage per shot over a standard battle cannon. So now we know what all the weapon systems do. What is Morning Glory's recommended loadout? Well, to be honest with you guys, I would keep this almost as bog standard as possible. I wouldn't bother paying for the heavy bolters. I don't think you're going to get much extra mileage out of them. It's going to cost you 20 points to swap 2 of those stubbers for heavy bolters. You can't swap all the stubbers out. You can only swap the 2 sponson ones, and the heavy flamers don't really make sense to me. This is clearly a long-range bombardment tank. It's got a 72-inch range on its main gun. It's got a 36-inch range on a lot of its supporting firepower. The heavy flamers just do not make sense to me. So for me, I would take it with 4 heavy stubbers, and I would even go as far to treat yourself and put that extra 5th heavy stubber on top. Now, I know you could take the storm bolter, and in a pinch, especially if the tank gets tied up, getting that extra storm bolter shot would be nice, but to be honest, I really feel like just having all of the heavy stubbers is the better way to go, because it means this thing can operate from 36-inch range really, really effectively. And I would definitely not put the Hunter Killer Missile on this thing. It's an extra 5 points, and to be honest, the Macharius only has a ballistic skill of 4+. I don't think that it's worth it. If you want to take a Hunter Killer Missile, stick it on a tank commander, or if you've got another unit that you can somehow get it up to like ballistic skill 3+, then you can put your Hunter Killers there, but you don't want to bother putting them on your ballistic skill 4+ units. So now let's take a look at some of the data sheet abilities. Now, straight off the top, we've got Armor of Contempt. Combine that with the fact that this thing thing now has a 2+ armor save, and it makes it incredibly durable. I talk about Armor of Contempt a lot. It is a game changer. If you are a faction that has access to it, you really want to be leaning on it as much as possible. It is a fantastic ability. So having a 2+ save with Armor of Contempt makes this big beast very, very durable. Now, it also comes with smoke launchers, and interestingly, these are the old school smoke launchers, just like on your other Imperial Guard vehicles, which means that instead of shooting, you can pop smoke for a turn, and that allows you to get a -1 to hit roll for ranged weapons that target this vehicle. Now, I think in this case, that is actually a disadvantage. To be honest, I think the Macharius is one of those units that would really benefit from having the new smokescreen stratagem abilities like many other factions like Space Marines have, because you don't really want to be popping smoke on this thing and not shooting. You want to be able to have that stratagem in your back pocket so that when someone tries to blow up your big, beautiful Macharius tank, you can go, nah, not today, and just slap down the smoke screen. So I think that actually it's a little bit of a disadvantage, but at the end of the day, if your Macharius for some reason can't shoot and you're expecting it to get hit hard next turn, you can pop smoke and then preemptively give yourself a little bit of a defensive buff. It's not a bad ability, it's just in this case not as good as having the new smokescreen ability. Also, just a quick one to mention, because the Macharius is a big beauty, when it explodes, it does go up on a 6+, but it does affect each unit within 2d6 inches, and each unit suffers d6 mortal wounds. That is actually quite a hefty explosion, and something you're going to have to be aware of. Potentially, that could be a 12-inch explosion, and if you're not careful, that could affect a lot of your units. Although, to be honest, I wouldn't worry about it too much. It is only a 6+, but it's just something you're going to want to be aware of. Now, I have saved the best data slate ability till last, and that is Steel Behemoth. This means that even if this thing has fallen back, it can still charge, and if you tie it in combat, it does not care. It can shoot itself out of combat if it wants to. Even its blast weapon can target units that it is not in combat with. So even this thing is 100% wrapped and trapped, it can still shoot its twin Macharius battle cannon out of the combat at another enemy unit whilst using those point defense heavy stubbers to try and clear the hull. So no matter what the enemy does, this thing is able to operate and do damage to them. So now that we've taken a look at the datasheet abilities and the weapon systems, let's take a look at the stratagems that you can use on this beast. Now, the first stratagem that you can use with your Macharius is the Tank Ace stratagem, and that is found in the Psychic Awakening, the Greater Good supplement, and the one that I would go for is Steadfast Leviathan. This means that your Macharius gets to benefit from a regiment trait. Without that stratagem, you would not be able to get a regiment trait on your Macharius. You can also use the Crush Them stratagem on the Macharius, which is actually quite a nice trick to have up your sleeve. Crush Them means that you hit on a 2+ in the fight phase, and the fact that this thing has 6 attacks and the adamantium tracks means that it is strength 7, AP -2, D3 damage, means that this vehicle is actually surprisingly good at running people over in combat. You can also use the jury rigging stratagem, which means that if you do not move, you can heal 1 wound, but you can only do that once per turn. And you can use the defensive gunner stratagem, which means that if this vehicle gets charged, you can spend 1 CP for Overwatch and you can spend another CP for defensive gunners, which means that when it shoots, it does get to hit on 5s and 6s for Overwatch. Now, little side note here, we were talking about the difference between Leman Russes and Macharius's before, and this is actually another advantage, albeit a small one, that the Macharius has. When the Leman Russ fires its battle cannon on Overwatch, it only gets to fire D6 shots because Grinding Advance is only for the shooting phase. But when the Macharius gets charged and it wants to fire Overwatch, it actually gets to fire 2D6. So combine that with Overwatch and Defensive Gunners, and you actually have a vehicle that is surprisingly lethal in the Overwatch. Now, there are a few other regiment-specific stratagems that work really well with the Macharius. The first one being the Destroying stratagem, Firstborn Pride, which allows you to give it a +1 to hit in the shooting phase. Now, that is just nice. It means that your Macharius goes from hitting on a 4+ to a 3+. I've talked about Firstborn Pride many times. It is a really effective stratagem for essentially taking a big Titanic unit and making it actually very powerful in the shooting phase and a lot less swingy. You also have 2 Cadian related stratagems that are very effective as well. The first one being shock troops. Now it will cost you 2 CP to do this on your Macharius, but what that means is it counts as remaining stationary, which will give it inbuilt reroll 1s to hit thanks to the Cadian Born Soldiers regimental trait, and it also means that if you are within half range, then you improve the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. Now that's really big because one of the Macharius' disadvantages is that its main gun is only AP -2, but the fact that it's got a 72-inch range, which means its half range is 36 inches, which means that if you're within 36-inch range and you use shock troops, you're actually hitting them with AP -3. That makes it very, very nice indeed, and actually solves one of the key problems of the Macharius twin battle cannon. Combine that with the absolutely fantastic stratagem load, fire, reload, which means that you get exploding 6s with your blast weapons, and if you target an enemy vehicle or monster, it gets double exploding 6s. That means that your Macharius twin battle cannon is going to be doling out a lot of pain. So now we know all of the abilities and tricks that this thing can do. What would be the intended battlefield role of the Macharius heavy tank? Well guys, I think it's fairly obvious. This thing is a fire support unit. It doesn't mind if it gets tied up in combat, but at the end of the day, its main strength comes from the fact that it can do a lot of damage in the shooting phase. So you're going to want to be taking advantage of some fire lanes. You're going to want to be taking advantage of the range advantage you're going to have over many of your opponents, and you just want to be blasting away with that twin Macharius battle cannon. It's a really, really good weapon. Another great battlefield role that this thing can perform is distraction card effects. At the end of the day, the Macharius is a relatively affordable super heavy, coming in at 325 points with all of those stubbers. And at the end of the day, your opponent, quite frankly, doesn't really have the luxury of letting this thing just trundle around the battlefield doing whatever it wants. It is a super heavy. It still has fantastic damage output. And like I said, at the end of the day, it is a super heavy. It has a psychological impact when you slap that thing on the battlefield. It is a big model. It is imposing. You see it on the tabletop. Your opponent is going to do one of two things: be intimidated or be like, I need to go for it. Either way, you're going to be psychologically affecting the way your opponent plays, which is a big part of Warhammer 40k. One faction that actually gets a big kick out of taking Macharius is the Militarm Tempestus Scions. There's nothing stopping you from taking one of these things in a super heavy auxiliary detachment, spending a CP on tank ace to give it a regiment trait, taking it as Destroying Orcadian, and combining that with your Tempestus Scions. That is all totally allowed as per the latest balanced data slates and FAQs. And just like the Stormblade, which we've talked about in previous videos, the Macharius brings to the Scions something they don't normally have, which is durability and heavy armor. So whilst this thing is drawing a lot of firepower and taking up a lot of your opponent's attention, the Glory Boys, the Scions, are actually running around doing most of the damage and taking most of the objectives and scoring you your points. It's a fantastic force multiplier for your Stormtroopers. But that's all we've got time for today, folks. I know there are two variants of the Macharius. You've got the Vanquisher and you've got the Vulcan, but we'll be covering those two tanks in another video. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please consider giving it a like and a subscribe, and also feel free to leave a comment and let me know what you think. Do you like the Macharius, or do you think you're just better taking more Leman Russes? Put it down in the comment section below. And of course, if there's any other units you want me to review, let me know in that comment section, and if I can, I will pick them up and do a video on them. Now, if you've really enjoyed today's video and you want to see more unit reviews, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. It is thanks to the generous support of my channel members, of my patrons, that I'm able to do Mordian Glory full time now, which is still kind of mind-blowing to me, and that means I'm able to put out much more content. So if you want to see more stuff like this, please consider signing up. And I just want to take a moment to say a big thank you to all of our latest channel members and Patreon supporters. So a massive thank you to Perkysaurus, Valhallan1212 Lover, Screbsy, Uber Branches, Eli Conean, Fox21231, No Name, Richard Green, James Bland, and Roger My Todger. Also a shout out to the Patrons. Big thank you to Ven Diesel, Goodwin Games, Museum Fremen, Dennis W, Faceless Gaming Inc, and Gunlock Zero. Thank you guys for your support on Patreon. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a big thank you to all of my top tier Patreon supporters. These are the people that have truly, truly gone the extra mile when it comes to supporting the channel, and I am eternally grateful to them. So a massive thank you, and an 07 down in the comment section for Navy Veteran, Philip French, Ross Miller, Alex Dengale, John Stubbs, Nicholas Walsh, Swordfish Trombone, Diesel Fox, Tom Sutton and August Varney. Thank you guys for being War Masters. I really appreciate all of your support. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you guys next time.